Dead Art Studios, and today I'm going to look at some of the paintings I've done over about the last year. I'm going to review them. And why am I going to review them? Well, the reason I'm going to do that is, first of all, it's kind of summer, and there's like the Royal Academy summer exhibition on, so that's one reason to have a look, sort of get my work out, remind myself of what I was doing in sort of deepest, darkest winter, and refresh myself, ready for the next winter when I'm going to be working extra hard again on my paintings. At this time of the year, in summer, I do find it a bit harder to do a lot of art because there's so many other things going on. You're outside in the world enjoying it with your family and friends. Winter's a little bit more miserable and dark out there, so that's when I tend to focus on my painting. So we'll have a look and see what you think of these pieces. Let me know in the comments. This is the first piece that I'm going to show you. It's not really got a name. I think maybe something like little boxes, I'd call it, something like that. And this is kind of the start of this iteration of my art and painting journey. Just before this, I was doing a lot of digital art, and AI started to come along, and I started to wonder, I'm like, is there really a market or an interest for digital art? Maybe it will fit in its own little place in art history, but I was thinking more to the future, and I thought, well, I think I ought to do some real painting. It's going to take a while for the robots to catch up on that one. So I've started with this one just on a little canvas, and I've used artist acrylic paints. The brand's Golden, but they're just the ones I picked basically because they're the most recognisable to me in the art shop and online. And I made a very sort of dark black, carbon black canvas. Just painted it, and then on top of that I took one of my razor blades, used my razor blade techniques, and dragged white paint down it in, I think, just 3 strips like this. And then on top of it, it's because of the canvas is sort of got different bits of tension in it, it left more paint in some areas than others, and in some ways this unlocked the beginning of my sort of major use of blades for painting. And I was like, oh, this is an interesting technique. And I use blades as well to put the red and yellow lines on it. It's kind of supposed to be a window into something, I think. So it's got that square window shape, and it's got the sort of black border. It's not a perfect border. I just did it by eye rough. So it's supposed to be a bit, I'm not sure if wonky is the right word, but it's supposed to be a bit imperfect. And I guess on the top, we've got almost like a abstracty but mountainous scene. It's all very flat and two-dimensional rather than having any sort of perspective in it. And in that, I've sort of separated it. The idea is separating things and putting things into separate little boxes. I've got some hints down there with red and yellow lines coming down into that sort of mountain background. And then on the front, I've got the sort of three more windows or boxes. And in the centre one here, I've got almost what looks like a little female figure. And on the left, kind of very abstract, just like clouds, almost like an entity of some kind. And on this side, maybe another landscape within, So we've got these 3 little separate things here at the bottom and the one at top. And overall, it makes this sort of just a little boxed window. It's not supposed to have too much thought behind it. And very much for me, just like the beginnings of my journey. So that's kind of why I like it. And to be honest, most of the artwork that I've kept and I've got stored and for sale, I do like, because generally speaking, I throw artwork that I don't like away. So if it exists, I probably do like it. Anyway, that was the first one. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so this is my next painting on birch panel. I think it's 20 by 30 centimetres. It's on this nice birch panel. And it's a very textured mixed media piece. So I don't know if you can catch it on the light, but it's very textured along here. And I've used sort of collage to kind of achieve that. So I've stuck paper down, and then I've put black acrylic over it, and then I've used some pigment as well that I got from my soft pastels, and I've dropped pigments in, so it's not supposed to be the most colourful kind of thing. Let's get in close, see what we can see. It's not supposed to be super colourful, but it is supposed to just have a little hint of colour when you look at it more closely. Now this one, again, I think it's a kind of very flat two-dimensional landscape. I think there's all the pieces I'm going to show you are kind of in that style. And I think at the bottom here, I don't know, kind of almost like a lake bed area, something like that, with some sort of like rocky cliffs, and then up almost like a cave scene as well. So maybe this is the inside of a cave, and it all reaching up and all looming up. And so I've sort of got bits of blue sort of spread equally throughout, and then tiny little bits of pink. And is there any other colours I can see there? No, not really, just this one little bit of pink. I think the most interesting thing about this is the texture in it, and it's kind of channeling a little bit of Anselm Kiefer's work. I don't know if you've seen Anselm Kiefer's work. It's worth looking at. I don't think I was really aware of his work when I made this, but it's kind of moody and dark and quite abstracted. But there's life to it. There's something real about it. So yes, it's finished with sort of satin varnish that you can kind of see on the light. So it's not too glossy, but it's not totally matte either. And I do like it, as I say, all my artwork that survives, I do like it. And I do think this is one of my more subtle pieces. The next three that I'm going to show you are on paper, and they're all a lot more colourful. So this is one of me being more muted and restrained as an artist. So don't really think that's got a name either. I think we'll just call it The Cave, shall we? The Cave. Right, let's move on to the next three. So they're all on paper. See what we think of those. I've got them all here. I'll put them, we'll just racket them off one by one. I'll see if there's a chronological order to them. I think it's approximately like this. So these have got titles because I've written them on the back. And this one's called Ad Hoc Reflections. So it's mounted and ready for sale, and I did it in 2024, so last year. And it's using the same kind of techniques, but this is on paper using acrylic, but it's using the blade technique that I sort of started on the first painting that I showed you. And again, it's an abstracted landscape. It's a lot more colourful and a lot more chaotic. So I think that's why it's called Ad Hoc Reflections. And the idea is that the top and the bottom are kind of reflecting each other, but they don't really match up. There's no realism in it. I think the colours are interesting and almost Fauvist in style, you know. They're not natural colours. They're more coming from me and evoking how I feel about colour. And I have quite a strange relationship with colour. I kind of want to get, like in the last piece, muted and almost grown-up complex colours. And I often end up going with very bright and almost, unmixed colours. There's quite a lot of complexity to it within the colour, even if the individual colours used are not sort of like I won't say well mixed, but I didn't spend a lot of time mixing colours and making complicated sort of colours. I just kind of got things out of the tube. They kind of mix on the paper as well. These are relatively quick to make. They take me about half an hour, but then with putting backing board and a passe-partout, I think is the proper name, but a frame mount. It ends up taking maybe an hour and a half per piece. I do have loads and loads of these that I've made. They're all just stacked up. And this one is one of the early ones. And it's interesting how, as I've gone through time, the style has changed, but these are all pretty similar. So yeah, the next one is similar to the first one. It's called Battlefield, this one. Also done last year, 2024. And again, the very strong colours at the top, almost skyline. And the reason I'm calling it Battlefield is this bit at the bottom here reminds me of sort of like the trenches in World War One, you know, all sort of muddy and complicated and horrible. And we've got maybe some barbed wire and fencing here. And then we've got these lines, these colourful lines coming off into the sky, almost like, you know, bullets flying through. Is it tracer fire they call it, something like that? Yeah, it's almost tracer coming off, and you know, it's meant to be a bit of a weird juxtaposition, you know, the sort of slightly miserable and intense looking landscape itself in terms of its structure, but then the colours very bright and intense, but on the side of maybe more euphoria and happiness rather than like doom and gloom. So yeah, that one's called Battlefield. Okay, this is the last one for today. I'm going to do a few more of these videos. You know, summer's coming. I've got vacation. I've got childcare responsibilities. So these videos are nice and easy for me to make, but to show you my art and what I'm all about. And, you know, the art history ones, I'm also, if you've seen those, I'm also researching more of those, and I will be back to those. You know, but maybe this is a little summer vacation from that. So this is the last one. Chaotic Cave. I seem to have got a lot of cave stuff going on, don't I? Let's have a look. This one's more in the yellow, blacks, reds. In the middle, maybe some stalagmites. Yeah, mites go up, yeah. Stalagmites in the middle. And then maybe another idea of another pool, water pool and reflection. And then, who knows, maybe there's a way out there you can see out with those standing stones and, you know, rock faces kind of in the way. It's on acrylic again. It's using quite a lot of different colours. There's some magentas in there as well. I do like the deep warmness of those colours. And I do think these three paintings, all three of them, are pretty successful. Interestingly, these seem to be some of my more complicated ones. And then as I've gone further on down the road, they seem to have become more simplified. So that's kind of interesting in itself. I really do like these ones. And sometimes I wish that, you know, that this is what I could still produce. But, you know, when I sit down and do these, it's almost automatic, and that's not what comes out. I do like the ones that I've created more recently, but these really feel like I tapped into something that I can't find right now again. But, you know, I guess that's the way, isn't it? You're moving with your emotions and how you feel, and whatever comes out, comes out. So that's the last one, Chaotic Cave. So there you go, that's 5 pieces of my artwork that I made last year. It's definitely made me feel keen to get back to painting, and you know, I have been painting throughout the summer, but it's been less frequent. You know, I've got other things to do like gardening and things like that that require you to be outside, and I don't want to be cooped up all the time when I don't have to be. But winter will be coming soon enough. When we get to September, it'll be time to get the brushes back out every night and really sort of hit hard. So to go through this artwork, it's going to be very helpful to focus me when that time comes. Anyway, Dead Art Studios. I'll see you next week.